Working from home, is it awesome or does it kind of suck? So right now with everything that's happening, a lot of people are either working from home for the very first time or they're thinking, hey, I could potentially be stuck at home for a while. I better find some way of making money so that I can work from home. So I've been working from home or on the road while traveling or on the water while sailing for a bit over 3 years now. And so I wanted to give my thoughts and advice based on my experience working at home and explain why there's a good, there's a bad, and there's an ugly side to working at home. As well, I'm gonna give you some tips and experience just based on the things that I've learned while doing this for myself. And remember, I'm here and this channel is here to support you in your journey to breaking out of that box, to making money in better, more freedom enabling ways. So if you like the idea of that, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Click that notification bell so you get these videos as they come out. And let's get started. Let's talk about the good sides of working at home. And the very first, the very best, the most important thing with working from home is freedom. It's the reason why I started my Amazon FBA business 3 years ago. It's the reason why I did all of this. Was I was sick of the idea of even just doing that commute every day for years or for the rest of my life. The idea of being stuck in this box with people that I didn't necessarily like. Some people I did, some people I didn't, but it didn't matter because I had no control over who I was going to be in the box with. This is really a topic which I can talk for a long time about, but needless to say, it is great working from home because you're in control of your environment. You don't have to do things just because a company policy or a company procedure says that you have to do it that way. And if you ever stop and think and actually start questioning that, then it will go down as a black mark against your employee record. I was really driven to escape that feeling of being stuck in that box. And so for me, starting to work from home was such a liberating feeling because of that. Suddenly, I could do whatever I wanted. I was in control of my own environment. I could choose when to work, where to work, how to work, who to work for. And maybe to some extent, that's just me. Maybe I'm a little bit extreme, but I think to some extent, we all want that feeling of control. We all want to feel like we matter. And when we matter, we can do things our own way. And probably if you're here watching this, you probably agree with me as well to some extent. So the freedom was a massive, great aspect of working from home. And that feeling is the thing that I appreciate most from the day that I first started doing this to today, and probably I always will as well. The next great thing about working from home is that it's really efficient. You don't have to spend all that time leaving your house and going to an office. You don't have to spend time in the office wasted with meetings and things like that. Now, whatever your individual setup is, wherever you're going, generally there's some sort of cost in terms of time and money associated with that. And it's also a balancing act too. So where I'm from, Sydney in Australia, we have a really bad problem with traffic congestion. And also the city is very congested in terms of where people are working versus where people are living. And so what that means is that either people pay a lot of money to actually rent or to buy a really expensive house close to where they work or close to where most of the jobs are, or more likely they make the economic decision to actually try and save money by living further away from their workplace, but then they lose in their time because then they're spending firstly more money as well, but definitely more time, up to an hour or an hour and a half every single day, going from where they live to where they work, back again, doing it again the next day and again and again and again. And that is a huge cost that you pay when you're not working from home. However, when you're working from home, you don't have to worry about any of that because where you work is where you live, and maybe your bedroom is basically where you are working. I mean, maybe you can see there's a bed in the background there, but it's actually not mine. My bedroom is downstairs. But needless to say, I'm not spending an hour every day walking up the stairs to my workplace from where I'm living. So with that time that you're saving by not commuting, let's say it's an hour a day, which for a lot of people is very reasonable, 5 hours per week, 48 hours a year, let's say, that's 240 hours per year. That is enough to learn an income generating ability and then to actually be making your own money on your own terms just with the time that you save through commuting. So you get this compounding effect where you suddenly have more time in your day. Again, you can use it for leisure, you can use it to enjoy your life, or you can put that towards actually investing in yourself and therefore making more money. So it really adds up over time, that aspect. The third reason why working from home is awesome, and this is a follow-on point from the last one, is it actually makes you realize what is important versus just doing things because they are normal. And my previous point about thinking about this as like a time and output based equation where you can actually change those inputs and change those outputs and get more out of it if you just do something differently. Honestly, when you're working in an office environment and you're working in this constrained sort of box environment, you don't really think that way. You just assume that everything is the way it is because it's the way that you've been put into it and you can't change anything. But as soon as you can start changing things, you start to realize that there are a lot of things that you can optimize. For example, saving an hour per day equals a new income generating ability equals an extra, whatever, $10, $20, $50,000 per year just because of that time that you saved. But it's only when you're suddenly confronted with this open situation, which is working at home, which is being able to choose to do the things that you want to do in the way that you want to do them, you you suddenly start to realize there's a lot more opportunity that you were leaving on the table. Another mental shift that happens when you start working from home is that you start to think more in terms of output instead of time. So instead of working office hours of I work until 9 a.m. until 6 p.m., suddenly you start actually just thinking about what do you need to get done? What's the value adding work that is what you're getting paid to do, whether it's by your clients or whether it's by your boss? And how can you do that work most efficiently? Because once you get that work done, that's where the value is. That's what you get paid for. You can do whatever you want to with the rest of the time. And that's not something you really have the luxury of thinking about when, again, you're just working fixed hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. You're just going to try and either fit more work into that time if you do the work that you're supposed to do, or, and this happens, I think, just as often, is you actually try and space that work out to fill in your office time. And when you do that, it may feel good. You may feel like you're getting paid more to do the less, but ultimately, if you want to make more money and be more successful in life, you need to have the reverse attitude, which is how can I do more in less time? And working from home helps you think about it like that, because suddenly when you're done with the work that you needed to do, you can go and do whatever you want because you're already at home. And I'd say the fourth thing that I really, really like about working from home is that it's easy to control your home environment as well. So I talked about optimizing what's happening outside of your work environment, so reducing commuting, for example. But now think about the things that you can do right now as well to make your work life more productive, more enjoyable, more efficient, and just more harmonious with the rest of your life as well. Or to put it another way, you can now eliminate crap that doesn't matter in an office environment, and you can add in things that do matter. So for me, what that means is that I can add in these nice little things that I like to do that make my workday more enjoyable, but aren't necessarily something that you could even really think about doing in an office. So that means if I'm working and then I want to take a quick break, I can just drop down on the ground and do some push-ups, or I can go into my bedroom and I can meditate for 15 minutes. Or honestly, if I'm just not feeling it, sometimes that means that I just need to go sit on the couch for a little while and just relax. And those are things that you can't really do in an office because of all that pressure around you to maintain appearances, to look like you're always doing work. But my honest perspective is that those little breaks, those things that you just want to do, really, really help your overall productivity, and they make you feel a lot better at the end of the day as well. All right, that's the good side of working at home, but what about the bad side? I think the first and most obvious thing is that it's hard to keep yourself accountable. The flip side of having this fixed environment, which sucks in a lot of ways and doesn't allow you to be yourself, it doesn't allow you to do the things that you enjoy. The flip side is that that same constrained box-like environment when you work in an office, that actually does keep you on track. It does hold you accountable to the things that you need to get done. And that's kind of obvious. You've basically got somebody over you cracking the whip, making sure that you're working like you should be working. However, when you're working at home, if you're easily distracted, or if you are someone who makes distractions for themselves, it's very hard to actually keep on track and keep focused. So with these problems with focus and with keeping yourself on track and staying productive, I find that, essentially it's a double-edged sword where you've got more control, which is great because that's what we want. We want to have control. We want to feel free. The flip side of that is the responsibility as well. You actually have to then enforce responsibility and accountability on yourself. And again, I like to focus on the environmental things. So I like to set up an environment where it's easier to focus. So it could be anything. Like I use noise canceling headphones. I like an absolute must have because they just help you block out a lot of noise and get into work. Little things like making the work environment as nice as possible to work into. You have to take that time before you really get into this and think about what are the things that you need to do to actually set up an environment where you can still hold yourself accountable. So whether that is blocking off a physical environment like an actual office or a space where you won't be disturbed by the kids or your dog or whoever else, having that space where you go to work, I think really helps with accountability and just having a zone, at least a zone, if not a period of time or whatever else where you can focus. Other little environmental things like, for example, setting your mobile phone to airplane mode or on do not disturb when you're working and just so you don't receive any notifications. You probably want to use some apps to actually restrict and block your web browsing so that you can only really look at things that you need to. And you can go and just think about what are you actually spending time on, whether it's the news, whether it's social media, and literally download an app like Blocksite to then just block those when you're in work mode. The next bad thing is that offices are actually specifically designed for you to do work, whereas your home environment isn't necessarily. So that again goes hand in hand with having a physical space to do work in. Ideally, it's a separate room, but if it's even just your kitchen table or wherever it may be, put the effort in at the start to make that workspace as ergonomic and as comfortable as possible. And whether that is even just physical little things like plants or maybe some incense or something like that, if it'll help you relax and also focus, that's great. For me, the only thing that I've really found to be an ergonomics issue when it comes to workspaces was actually, I don't know if you can see this, but I use my laptop, so I don't have a desktop or anything. But normally I'd be working on a desk, sort of looking down at the desk because I can't control the chair or the height or the desk, whatever adjustment. So then I'll be like angling my neck down to look at this laptop screen. But the solution to that, and I was actually really slow to get this, is to get a laptop stand. Like this one is the Roost laptop stand. And basically it's super simple, super lightweight, so great for traveling. And it just lifts the laptop screen up by around about that much, which solves that problem of me having to bend my neck to view the laptop screen. So when you're going to work from home for the first time, choose your environment and then sit down and do the work, but think about all those little things which will add up over time, and you may have them controlled in an office environment. But now that you're working from home, you've got to actually just put a little bit of effort into controlling them yourself. By the way, this is a really bullish thing for a lot of categories on Amazon. If you're selling certain types of products, think about the certain types of products that people are going to buy to make their home environment better. So that can be either removing distractions or making the place more ergonomic or helping with focus or helping with enjoyment and actually making that workplace environment more, again, more enjoyable, more peaceful, more tranquil, more ability to focus. Those sorts of things I think are going to do well in the medium to long term on Amazon. The last bad thing about working from home is actually dealing with your team. And so I used to work in a large company and now I own a small company. So I've seen what it looks like working in a big office with really old, slow systems and lots of meetings and all that crap. And I now know what it looks like to actually have a small team that is completely remote, that just uses technology. And there's definitely a lot of good sides to it. It is super, super efficient. Like I said before, you don't need to worry about commuting. You don't need to worry about overhead and rent and all that sort of stuff. But the flip side is that it's actually quite hard to have that same close relationship with your team. It's hard to have those same in-person dynamics that you get. I don't know if there's a perfect solution for this, but honestly, understanding how good team collaboration tools are. Like we use Asana, we use Slack, we use Google Docs and now Notion for all of our team database sharing, knowledge sharing. And by the way, as I'm thinking about this, I would say email is a huge problem when it comes to trying to go from working in an office environment to actually moving completely to working from home. Is that email is a terrible way of communicating with your team. Those tools that I mentioned, Slack, Asana, and some sort of way of sharing knowledge, so like Google Docs, those three free tools pretty much mean that we never have to use emails at all, only when we're communicating outside the company. So if you're finding it hard to work from home and to communicate, try looking at software solutions to solve that problem. There are a lot out there and they work very well and they're free. Okay, so that's the good, that's the bad. How about the ugly side of working from home? What makes working at home suck? I think the first and most important thing for me personally anyway has been the sense of isolation. The default goes from, again, getting outside of the house every day, going through that inefficient commute, but actually you're at least interacting with people, you're seeing people, and then getting into that office environment where you again have people to talk to. If you're working from home, and particularly it depends on your living situation, maybe you have family at home, maybe you have people around you, it's not so bad. But if you're doing it completely by yourself, social isolation, and particularly with what we're living through at the moment, can be a really big issue. So it depends a lot on your sort of individual circumstance and also what type of person you are. I'm a very introverted person, so I don't actually notice that on a day-to-day basis so much, but I've definitely noticed that ruts or those feelings of lower productivity or just lower effectiveness where you're not doing that much. Those ruts are harder to realize that you're in, and they're also harder to get out of because you don't have this dynamism. You're basically just at home. And it's not like you're not moving from place to place, you're not talking to different people as much. The way to solve that really, again, it just comes back to thinking about your environment in advance. So thinking about if you're living with people, who you're living with, are they going to be a positive influence? Because those people will really help you, whether you're living, again, with friends or with family. Use them as your new support network. And then just being more aware of that. So checking in with yourself every day, doing journaling, I think is an incredibly useful habit for many things, but this especially, where you every morning think about how you're feeling. Are you feeling like you're in a rut? And if you are, what do you need to change? Because if you don't change anything, nothing changes, right? You're just gonna be in the same environment doing the same thing. So whether that's making the effort to even maybe take a day off, take some time off, to do something differently, to go for a hike or whatever else is what I like to do, stuff outdoors, or to just make sure that you schedule a call with someone or you see somebody in person. Having that trigger point every day really helps to identify those ruts due to that social isolation because you're working from home and get out of them faster. That's probably been the major thing in my experience that does suck about working from home. I'd say the next thing is blurred lines, or like, where does it actually end? So before, when you weren't working from home, you had these limitations or these lines around where your work was because it was in your job environment, your office. But when you take that home completely, those lines get very blurred. And sometimes I personally will find that I'll be up late working, for example, when I know that if I'm working late, the only thing that I'm really doing is just interrupting my sleep, interrupting my relaxation, and that then pushes out my productivity into the next day where I'm less productive because I'm fatigued. I also get less happy. So I know that I need like a clean break every day between work and then leisure time. One of the points I didn't really touch on in terms of the good aspects of working from home is that you can actually have flexibility to work during the times of day that suit you, because not all of us and most of us actually aren't working at our peak efficiency during normal office hours. There is like a 3 to 4 hour window where most of us will work at our best. For me, that's early in the morning. I'm filming this at 10 o'clock. And I'm actually just coming out of my peak period. Normally for me, it's between 7 and 10, I would say, is my peak period. But you need to work out where that period is for you. So when you are thinking about how to unblow those lines and how to delineate what is work time versus what is personal time, make sure that you put the work time in that peak period of peak productivity. The other way that you can sort of box that work in and keep the separation between work and personal life is, again, going back to having that environmental space. So having a room or a study or an office or whatever else it may be that is actually for working. And for example, the thing I hate most is having a desk in my bedroom next to my bed, because then I get into the bad habit of rolling out of bed in the morning and just going and sitting at the computer, which is also really terrible. So try and have that physical separation as well as that time separation to separate out your work time and your leisure and relaxation time. And those for me are really the most ugly aspects of working at home. But overall, I truly believe that working from home and having the opportunity to do so has so many more good things that just vastly outweigh the bad and the ugly. If I can summarize it all, you just need to be super conscious about your environment because you have control. So that is the gift, is that you have the freedom, you have the ability to choose, but it's also a responsibility and a necessity that now you have to control that environment. You have to think about it consciously. So for example, if you're super extroverted and you're not conscious about selecting your environment and removing distractions and you're easily distracted, well, you're probably going to struggle with working from home. But it's those same things that you'll develop through working at home, which is self-discipline, the ability to think consciously about your environment, the ability to reflect on yourself and how you're feeling, and then being deliberate and conscious about what you choose to let in versus what you choose to reject. Those are all incredibly beneficial habits, whether or not you're working at home or whether you're working in an office environment. But the only difference is that when you're working at home, you have much more ability to actually harness those things as powers and as abilities to improve your life, to improve your work ethic, to improve your business or your income, whatever that may be, to be more efficient, to be more productive, to be happier while doing it. So overall, working from home definitely doesn't suck. Just be aware of these things that I've talked about. At least this is all based on my own personal experience. So I hope that this gives you some perspective. Again, whether you are working from home for the very first time or whether you're thinking about starting up some kind of online income to enable you to work from home. I hope this helped. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button. That will really show me it's worth making these videos. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Click that notification bell so you get the next video when it comes out. And I will see you in the next video.